5 friends set out on a camping trip, but they weren't alone. They found the body. And then the whispers began. What they uncovered wasn't just human remains. It was a doorway to a nightmare they could never escape. Whispers in the woods. The fire crackled, casting eerie shadows against the towering trees. The group of 5, Ethan, Rachel, Olivia, Mark, and Lucas, sat in a circle, laughing and roasting marshmallows. The forest surrounded them like an unbroken wall of darkness, the sounds of the night whispering through the leaves. "This place gives me the creeps," Olivia muttered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "Come on," Ethan said, smirking. "It's just a forest." Rachel shivered. "It doesn't feel empty, though. It feels like we're being watched." Lucas, always the rational one, shook his head. "Paranoia. It's just your imagination." But the uneasy feeling clung to them. The night deepened, the fire flickering lower. Then, Mark stood abruptly. "I need to take a leak. Be right back." He disappeared into the trees, his flashlight beam bouncing between the trunks. A few minutes passed, then, "Guys, you need to see this." His voice was urgent, shaking. The others hesitated before following. They found him standing in a small clearing, his flashlight trembling in his grip. And there, half buried beneath damp leaves, was a body. The corpse was twisted unnaturally, its mouth frozen in a silent scream. Its eyes, wide, empty, seemed to stare right through them. Deep scratches ran along its arms and chest, as if it had tried to claw at something before it died. Rachel gagged, turning away. Olivia clutched Ethan's arm, her nails digging into his skin. Lucas stepped closer, his brow furrowing. "This isn't an accident." Mark swallowed. "Maybe an animal attack?" Rachel pointed at the trees. Long, jagged scratches ran deep into the bark, like something had raked across them with impossible strength. Then Olivia noticed the worst part, a trail of disturbed leaves leading away from the body, vanishing into the dense forest. "Someone or something moved it here," she whispered. A gust of wind blew through the trees. The sound was wrong. It wasn't just wind, it was whispering. "We need to go," Rachel said. Then a branch snapped nearby. Everyone froze. The whispering grew louder, like voices just beyond their hearing. Slow, deliberate footsteps crunched on the leaves. Ethan spun around, his flashlight sweeping the trees. "Who's there?" No answer. Then, from the darkness, laughter. The group ran. Branches clawed at them as they sprinted back to their campsite. But something was following. Fast. The footsteps pounded behind them. Inhumanly quick. Impossibly heavy. Then, Ethan tripped. Olivia screamed as she yanked him up. Behind them, a shadow moved. Not an animal, not human. It was tall, gaunt, its limbs too long, its movements unnatural. But its eyes, black voids, endless and empty, were the worst part. Then it lunged. Mark yanked Rachel away just in time. Lucas swung a branch at it, but it vanished. Only silence remained. Panting, the group huddled together. "What the hell was that?" Olivia whispered. Lucas grabbed Ethan's arm. "We have to find a place to hide." Then they saw it, a cabin barely standing, hidden among the trees. They bolted inside, slamming the door shut. The air was thick with dust and decay. The walls were covered in carvings, warnings, symbols. One phrase stood out, scratched deep into the wood. "It watches, it waits, never run, never scream." A deep, inhuman growl rumbled outside. The whispers were inside now. The door creaked, the light flickered. Then, darkness. Someone gasped. A wet, dragging sound scraped across the floor. Then, a scream. "Ethan." Rachel's hand shot out in the dark. "Ethan!" A violent thud. A choking gurgle. Then, silence. The light flickered back. Ethan was gone. A trail of blood led to the open door. The forest outside was shrouded in thick mist. "No, no, no," Olivia sobbed. Mark grabbed the old journal lying on a broken table. He flipped to the last entry. The frantic handwriting made his stomach churn. "I saw it, and now I can never leave." A whisper curled into Rachel's ear, though no one was near her. "You shouldn't have found him." Something laughed. They ran. Branches slashed their faces, their clothes. The trees seemed closer, their limbs reaching for them. And behind them, the footsteps. Rachel risked a glance back. It was running, faster than anything should. Its limbs stretched, its mouth opened wide in an unholy grin. Lucas pulled Olivia up as she stumbled. The thing swiped at her, razor-sharp claws missing by inches. Then, the trees ended. They burst onto the dirt road where their car was parked. Mark fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. Rachel turned back. It stood at the tree line, watching, waiting. Then, it smiled. A whisper curled through the night. "I see you." The engine roared. The forest disappeared behind them, but the whispers never stopped. 3 days later, Rachel woke in a cold sweat. Her phone buzzed. One new voicemail. She pressed play. Static. Then, a whisper. "You shouldn't have found him." And in the background, laughter. Shadows in the fog. The road twisted through the dense forest, swallowed by an eerie, creeping fog. The headlights of the SUV barely cut through the thick mist, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to move. "GPS is dead," Matt muttered, tapping the cracked screen of his phone. "No signal." "Great," Lisa sighed, rubbing her arms. "So we're lost in the middle of nowhere." "We're not lost," Jason said, gripping the wheel tighter. "The Airbnb is just up ahead." Noah leaned forward from the back seat, peering through the windshield. "This fog is insane. I've never seen anything like it." Beside him, Emily shifted uncomfortably. "I have a bad feeling about this place." The SUV rumbled forward, its tires crunching on gravel. The road narrowed, the trees pressing in like silent sentinels. Then, something moved. A flicker of motion in the fog. A figure barely visible. Jason hit the brakes. The car skidded to a stop. "Did you see that?" Lisa whispered. No one spoke. The figure stood motionless in the fog, its form barely human, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Then, it was gone. The silence in the car was suffocating. Jason exhaled sharply. Just a trick of the light. But the others weren't convinced. The SUV crept forward. The trees grew denser. Then, without warning, the headlights illuminated something ahead. A wrecked car, abandoned in the middle of the road. The windshield was shattered. The doors hung open. Lisa gasped. "Oh my God!" Jason pulled over, stepping out cautiously. "Stay here." Noah followed, flashlight in hand. The others watched nervously as they approached the wreck. Inside the car, the seats were torn. Long claw marks shredded through the upholstery. Blood smeared across the dashboard, but no bodies. A rustling sound came from the trees. Noah turned his flashlight toward the woods. A face stared back. Pale, expressionless, eyes hollow. Then it lunged. Noah screamed as something slammed into him, knocking him to the ground. Jason spun, heart hammering, but there was nothing there. Just fog. Just silence. Noah scrambled back to his feet, panting. "Let's get the hell out of here." They ran to the car. Jason threw it into reverse, tires spinning in the dirt. The road behind them was empty. But the whispers had begun. Soft at first, distant, but growing louder. Emily clutched Lisa's arm. "Do you hear that?" The voices slithered through the air, speaking in a language they couldn't understand. Then the car died. Jason frantically turned the key. Nothing. Just dead silence. The fog thickened, curling around them. The whispers were inside the car now. Lisa whimpered. "Something's out there." A shadow moved past the window. Another, then another. Shapes, tall and wrong, shifting through the fog. Noah grabbed Jason's shoulder. "Start the damn car!" Jason tried again. The engine sputtered. Then, something knocked on the window. A handprint smeared across the glass. But the fingers were too long. Lisa screamed. The engine roared to life. Jason floored it. The SUV tore down the road, the fog swirling violently around them. But the shadows followed. They ran beside the car, matching its speed. Their faces, blank, inhuman. Then one of them grinned. Emily clutched her head, crying, "They're in my mind! I can hear them!" The road twisted sharply. The car skidded, tires screeching. Then, something stepped into the headlights. Jason yanked the wheel. The world spun. Then, blackness. Pain. A high-pitched ringing. Lisa groaned, trying to move. The SUV was flipped, metal twisted, windows shattered. Jason lay unconscious, blood trickling from his forehead. Noah and Emily were slumped against the dashboard. Lisa turned her head and froze. A figure stood outside the broken windshield, still, waiting. Then, it bent down, peering inside. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Its eyes were pits of darkness, and its mouth smiling. The whispers grew deafening. Then, everything went silent. The last thing Lisa saw was the figure reaching for her, and then, darkness. The forest that eats the lost. The last gas station had been nearly 50 miles back. The road stretched endlessly, flanked by towering pines that swallowed the moonlight. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the faint whisper of the wind through the trees. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Adam asked, his voice tight with unease. Kelly checked the map on her phone for the 100th time. The cabin should be just ahead. Maybe another 15 minutes. "This road doesn't even look like it's been driven on in years," Mike muttered, peering out the window. The trees pressed in closer, their skeletal branches reaching over the road, like fingers trying to snatch them from above. Anna, who had been quiet the entire trip, hugged herself in the back seat. "I don't like this place." The words settled over them like a curse. The cabin was supposed to be an off-the-grid getaway, a break from the noise of the city. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just 5 friends and the silence of nature. It had sounded perfect. But now, with the endless woods swallowing the road, it felt like a mistake. Then the headlights flickered. Adam tensed. "Did you see that?" "What?" Kelly asked, gripping the phone tightly. "The lights, they just dimmed for a second." Before anyone could respond, something ran across the road. Mike slammed the brakes. The car skidded, tires screeching on the dirt road, before coming to a shuddering stop. Silence. The 5 of them sat frozen, eyes locked on the dark road ahead. The fog curled between the trees, but there was nothing there. "What the hell was that?" Kelly whispered. "It was too big to be a deer," Adam muttered. Mike's knuckles were white against the steering wheel. "I don't know, but I'm not waiting to find out." He pressed the gas, and the car groaned forward. As they passed the spot where the figure had crossed, Anna let out a sharp breath. "Stop," she whispered. "No way," Mike shot back. "Look." They followed her gaze to the tree line. A figure stood there, tall, motionless, watching. The headlights barely illuminated it, just enough to see its smile. Not a normal smile. Too wide, too sharp. Then it was gone. Anna gasped. Kelly grabbed her wrist. "It's just your imagination." "No." Anna shook her head violently. "It was there. It was real." Adam swallowed hard. "Let's just get to the cabin." No one argued. The road twisted deeper into the forest. The fog thickened. The whispers started. At first it sounded like the wind, sifting through the trees in hushed voices. But then, words. Just beneath their hearing. Too faint to understand. By the time they reached the cabin, everyone was on edge. The place was small, old, but sturdy. Logs stacked tightly together, a stone chimney rising from the roof. A porch sagged under the weight of time, the windows black and empty. Mike killed the engine. No one moved. Finally, Kelly forced a laugh. "Okay, creepy drive, sure, but we're here. Let's get inside." Adam grabbed the bags. "Agreed. Let's just get some sleep." They stepped out into the cold night. The air was heavy. Wrong. Anna hesitated. She could still feel eyes on them, watching, waiting. The others went inside. She followed last, glancing back one final time. The trees stared back. The fire crackled in the stone hearth. The cabin smelled of old wood and dust. There were 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a single bathroom. Cozy, but the walls felt too close. The air, too still. They ate in silence. Then, a knock at the door. 3 soft, deliberate knocks. Anna's spoon clattered onto her plate. Mike frowned. Who the hell would be out here? Adam grabbed a flashlight, moving cautiously to the door. He hesitated. Knock, knock, knock. Closer this time. Kelly stood. Don't open it. Adam looked through the peephole. His breath caught in his throat. No one was there. Then, the knocks came from the window. Everyone turned sharply. Nothing. Just the empty forest beyond the glass. Then the whispers started again. Low, constant. Right outside. A slow scraping sound began at the door. A long, deliberate dragging. Something was outside. Adam stepped back. Turn off the lights. Mike quickly doused the lantern. The cabin fell into thick darkness, only the embers of the fire glowing faintly. No one spoke. No one breathed. Then, a shadow moved past the window. Tall. Wrong. A gurgling chuckle came from the other side of the door. Kelly clapped a hand over her mouth. Anna trembled. Then, the voice came. Low. Whispered. I see you. The doorknob turned. Mike grabbed a kitchen knife. We have to get out of here. Adam pointed to the back door. Through the woods, to the car. Kelly nodded. On 3. They ran. The door burst open behind them as they sprinted into the woods. The whispers turned to screams. Something followed. Fast. Too fast. Branches tore at their skin. The fog thickened. The trees shifted. The path was gone. Anna sobbed. Where's the car? Then, Kelly screamed. She was gone. Just gone. 1 second she was there. The next, vanished into the fog. No! Adam lunged forward, but Mike grabbed him. We can't! We have to keep moving! Then, another scream. Mike collapsed. His body twitched violently, his eyes wide, staring at something unseen. Then, his mouth opened too wide. Something tore him backward into the mist. Gone. Adam and Anna ran. The fog was suffocating. The whispers were inside their skulls. Then, the trees ended. The road. The car. Anna sobbed with relief. Adam yanked the door open. They scrambled inside. Adam jammed the key into the ignition. The engine wouldn't start. Then, the laughing started. A figure stepped out of the fog. Tall, grinning, and it wasn't alone. More figures emerged, surrounding the car, watching. Then, Anna screamed. Something dragged her out. Adam lunged for her, but it was too late. The last thing he saw was her being swallowed by the mist. Then, the door opened. A whisper curled into his ear. Now it's your turn. And then, darkness. The hollow ones. The last sign of civilization had disappeared miles ago. The road was nothing more than cracked asphalt, swallowed by the encroaching forest, its edges crumbling into dirt and overgrown weeds. The trees stood unnaturally tall, their bare branches stretching toward the gray sky like skeletal fingers. Tom gripped the steering wheel, eyes scanning the endless expanse of forest. Are you sure this is the right way? Megan checked the GPS again. No signal. Just an empty screen and the time blinking mockingly. It should be here, she murmured, voice laced with uncertainty. Beside her, Jake rubbed his temples. I swear, if this is another one of those off-the-grid Airbnbs, I'm turning around. Claire, curled up in the back seat, stared out the window. Something doesn't feel right? No one responded. They all felt it, the heavy, oppressive weight of the woods pressing in on them. Then the road ended. Not in a dead end, not in a turn. It simply stopped, as if it had never existed beyond that point. The 5 of them stared in stunned silence. Tom let out a shaky breath. What the hell? Maybe we missed a turn, Megan suggested weakly. Jake leaned forward. Number, look. There are tire tracks leading further. Claire followed his gaze. The tracks disappeared into the dense trees, as if the road had been erased from existence. A chilling wind rushed through the car, carrying a whispering sound that made their skin crawl. Something was waiting. We should leave, Claire said, voice barely above a whisper. But Tom shook his head. We came all this way. Let's just check it out. The silence in the car was suffocating. Then, against all logic, they got out. The ground was too soft. Every step felt like walking on damp earth, though there had been no rain. The trees loomed over them, gnarled and ancient. Shadows moved between them, flickering in the dimming light. Then they saw it. A cabin. But not like the one in the pictures. This one was wrong. The wood was blackened as if burned, but never consumed. The windows were holes, gaping voids of darkness. The door stood slightly ajar, revealing nothing but an abyss beyond. Something waited inside. Megan shivered. This isn't right. Tom stepped forward. We're here. Let's just... The door creaked open. A sound like a long, slow exhale drifted from within. And then, the whispers started. Soft at first, then closer. Behind them. Claire spun. Did you hear that? The trees were closer than before. The path was gone. Jake's breathing quickened. We need to go. Now! Then, Megan screamed. Tom whipped around. She was gone, vanished. Jake bolted for the cabin door. Megan? A whisper answered. Low, wrong. Inside his ear. She's already ours. Then the door slammed shut. Jake was inside. It was dark, but not normal dark. A living dark. Jake turned, heart pounding. Hello! His voice echoed. Then it spoke back. Hello? His own voice, distorted, mocking. The walls shifted, shadows slithered, pulling away from the corners. Then he saw them. The hollow ones. Their bodies were almost human, but stretched too long. Their skin paper thin and empty. No faces. Just gaping holes where eyes and mouths should be. Then, one turned its head and smiled. The whispering grew deafening. Jake ran. He slammed into walls that hadn't been there before. The cabin was changing. Something grabbed his wrist. Cold. Wrong. Megan's voice whispered in his ear. You shouldn't have come. He turned, but it wasn't Megan. Just a shape wearing her voice. Then the floor split open, and Jake fell into nothing. Outside, Claire and Tom were screaming. Jake had disappeared right in front of them. One second, he was pounding on the door. The next, he was gone. Then, the cabin door opened again, and Jake stepped out. But something was wrong. His head tilted at an unnatural angle. His smile was too wide. Tom took a step back. Jake? Jake laughed. It wasn't his voice. Claire grabbed Tom's arm. Run! Then Jake moved. Too fast. Too inhuman. They sprinted into the trees, but the forest had changed. The trees twisted. The path was gone. And the whispers. Inside their heads now. Then Claire tripped. Tom turned to help her, and saw them. Dozens. Emerging from the trees, the hollow ones. Silent. Waiting. Then, in unison, they smiled. Tom grabbed Claire's arm. We need to... But Claire was staring. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream. Then, she vanished. Tom was alone. The whispers swarmed him. Then, everything went black. They found Tom's car 3 days later. Empty. The doors were open. The keys still in the ignition. But there was no sign of them. Just the cabin, standing silent in the woods. And if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers. Waiting for someone else to come. Waiting for you. D'infondi. The forest that never lets go. It started with a dare. Ethan, Claire, Ryan, and Sam had heard the stories. The ones about Black Hollow Forest. The kind of stories meant to keep people away. Disappearances, strange lights, the sound of footsteps, when no one was there. But they were young, restless, looking for something to be afraid of. They should have listened. They drove deep into the forest, the headlights of Ethan's truck barely cutting through the thick fog that clung to the trees. Creepy as hell, Ryan muttered, leaning forward. It's like the trees are alive. Relax, Claire said from the back seat. It's just a forest. But she didn't sound convinced. Sam checked the map on his phone. We should be near the old ranger station. That was the plan. Find the abandoned outpost, take some pictures, prove they weren't scared, and leave. But The road ended too soon. A dead end. Nothing but thick trees in front of them. What the hell? Ethan muttered. The map shows a road continuing past here. Claire's phone went lost signal. So did Sam's. No data, no calls. That was the moment Ethan saw the first shadow move between the trees. They left the truck behind. The ranger station wasn't far. Or at least, it shouldn't have been. The deeper they walked, the quieter the forest became. No wind, no insects. Even their footsteps felt muffled. Sam kept checking the map. It was wrong. The paths didn't match. The direction kept shifting. Ethan's knuckles turned white around his flashlight. I think we should go back. No one argued. They turned around. And the path was gone. Trees surrounded them. Thicker. Closer. The trail they had come from was no longer there. Okay, don't panic, Claire whispered, though her voice shook. Then, a branch snapped behind them. Not from one of them. Something else was in the trees. Watching. Then came the laughter. Wrong. Distorted. Too close. Sam turned. His flashlight caught a figure standing between the trees. Too tall, too thin, no face. Just standing there. Then it tilted its head. The light flickered, and it was gone. Panic set in. They ran. Branches tore at their skin. The fog thickened, twisting into shapes that weren't real. Or maybe they were. Ryan tripped. Ethan grabbed him, yanking him up just as something lunged from the mist. Up's hand, blackened, twisted, but it missed. They kept running. The trees unshifted. The paths unmoved. Then Claire screamed. They turned, and she was gone. No footprints, no sound, nothing but the whispers. Saying their names, Ryan was shaking. We need to get the hell out of here. But the forest wasn't letting them go. They moved faster, breathless, hearts pounding, until they saw it. The ranger station. A small rotting cabin, its windows covered in handprints. Some too large, some too small. But the door was open, and inside they heard Claire screaming. They didn't think. They ran inside, that the air lines was wrong. Heavy, stale, like it hadn't been touched in years. The walls were covered in scribbled warnings. Don't listen to them. They are not your friends. The forest changes. Do not turn around. Then, a noise upstairs. Ryan bolted up first. Ethan and Sam followed. The hallway stretched too long, like the house was growing. At the end of the hall, a door slammed shut. Claire was inside, and they could hear her crying. Ethan reached for the door, and a hand burst through the wood. Too many fingers. Too long. The door ripped open, and Claire was there, but wrong. Her eyes were too wide, her mouth stretched too far. Her smile was too sharp. Then she'd laughed, but it wasn't her laugh. Ryan screamed. Sam backed away. Ethan ran. They never made it out. Days later, rescuers found their truck. The engine was still warm, but the forest was silent. And when they looked at the photos on Ethan's phone, they saw 4 shadows standing among the trees, watching, waiting, smiling,